We're going to be looking at population of Latin America today. There's 525 million people that live in Latin America, and that makes up 9% of the world's population. So there's quite a bit of people living there. Now you can see by the poplet here that we're going to be looking at human characteristics. We're going to be looking at where Latin Americans actually live. And then we're going to look at the growth of cities in Latin America. And then the next lesson, we will actually target the culture of the specific people. But today, we're looking at that population and looking at that 525 million people. Now, we've got two subsections here that we're looking at, a blending of people and languages. A blending of people inside of human characteristics. Now, this is probably one of the most important subcategories of this section of notes because the people groups in Latin America today are a blend of three different people. The first people in regards to this blend is the indigenous people. These are the ancestors of the Native Americans of the area. These were the beginning peoples of Latin America, the ones that were first to settle. The Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, they were the indigenous peoples of the area. Many Native American cultural features remain today in Latin America in areas like Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, but most of the time you don't have these specific cultures still existing, you have a blend. Regardless of this, these native peoples are trying to work to maintain their traditional values and not allow this blend. Now, the next to what you see is you had millions of Europeans that have immigrated to Latin America since Christopher Columbus. Many of these Europeans either speak Spanish or Portuguese, but regardless, they're bringing their culture with them. So you have the indigenous blend with the European blend, and then finally the African blend. Africans were brought over for slavery to help build the economies of Latin America. Remember back in our last section when we were talking about how they were used to grow sugarcane because very, very profitable product. Well, now you have African Americans here who brought their culture from their specific tribe in Africa. So that creates a blend where you don't see anywhere else. You've got a blend between the indigenous, between the specific European group, whether Portuguese or Spanish or even some other, and then the specific African tribal culture that's blended from their part of the world as well. So these three different cultures come together to blend and even create different ethnicities. The next we've got languages. Most people have adopted the language of the European country that colonized the region, and predominantly that is Spanish, as you can see by the map here. But you've also got some other ones like in Brazil, some different languages because of its size. But again, Spanish is primarily the one spoken. Each country does have its own dialect, which is a form of language that's unique to a particular area. And millions also speak the native language of the area, but again, predominantly they speak their European language, and predominantly that is Spanish. Now, there is what's known as a patois. This is spelled P-A-T-O-I-S. A patois is a dialect that blends elements of indigenous, European, African, and Asian languages. Now, moving on to where Latin Americans live. Latin America has a very high population birth rate, so the population is increasing, which is what you see predominantly in the world in regards to developing nations that are becoming industrialized and becoming developed. Their birth rate is very high, and then when they reach a developed nation, then that birth rate kind of levels out. But in South America, you have the populated rim. In the interior of South America, you have rainforests, deserts, and mountains which dominate the area, which create harsh conditions, poor soil, and therefore create a populated rim. These coastal regions, which is where most people are living, have the favorable climates. They have fertile land. They have better transportation, and so that's where people are. And by looking at the population density map, you can see where people actually live on this populated rim. Most South American countries are really big in regards to land, but then they have low population densities because of the rugged landscape. And then you look at places like the Caribbean islands, which are very small in regards to land, but their population is huge. So it just varies among different countries. And you can even look at Mexico, which is the world's most populous Spanish-speaking country, and it is very densely populated. Mexico City, for example, has a population density of 30,150 people per square mile, which is pretty intense. Predominantly migration internally in Latin America as well as externally is north. You have migration going north. You have an outflow of immigration to other parts of the world because these people are desiring for improved living conditions, maybe political freedom, maybe they're just wanting to escape the political unrest that's in the region, so they move north, predominantly to places like the United States, which is near Mexico. Most of the immigrants retain close ties with their family and friends, and really and truly, most immigrants are looking to go back home whenever the situation does improve. But for now, they're staying where they are. Now, internal migration. The internal migration that's going on in Latin America is urban. We have rapid urbanization that's going on. This migration is going from rural to urban, and the cities are just getting huge because of this. And then we've got urbanization from what we've talked about. In the past, most people in Latin America lived on farms. Now, because of commercial farming and because of industrialization and because of this massive population boom, people are moving into cities. Now, the first aspect I want to look at is the actual urban setting. Some places in Latin America have mega cities, which are cities with more than 10 million people in it. Mexico City is an example of this with around 19 million people in it. And it's projected in 2015, which is next year, to have almost 20 million people. Because of this, there's not a lot of fresh drinking water. There's not very good underground sewers. There's not very good city utilities. And living conditions are not the best. You have a lot of shacks, like you see in this picture here, a lot of makeshift homes, and life is not what these people dreamed it to be, but there's nowhere else to go. They're seeking jobs, which the cities just can't create. Now, Mexico City is an example of a primate city. A primate city is an urban area that dominates the country's economy, culture, and political affairs. It's kind of like the focus city of that nation. And you're mainly only going to see primate cities in Latin America. You're not going to see them anywhere else. But Mexico City is a good example of a primate city. And this rapid urbanization creates urban challenges. Most rural Latin Americans migrate to cities to find a better way of life, to get higher incomes, to find more educational opportunities, to have better housing, and to have increased access to health care. But predominantly what you find is they don't get this because the city's resources are strained by this urbanization. Jobs and housing just can't keep up, and these economic opportunities truly are just scarce. Many of Latin America's urban challenges arise from modern developments such as the growth of cities. They are a developing nation, and these are some of the growing pains of developing nations. And so these Latin American cities and countries are struggling with becoming industrialized and providing for their high population.